Welcome back to your Philippine Politics and Governance. Again, this is Mr. Kirp Anthony A. Ramos, and for this session, we'll be discussing about your Article 8 of your 1987 Constitution, also known as your Judicial Department. Just like we were mentioning for the past two sessions, there are actually three co-equal branches of the government, namely the executive, legislative, and the judiciary, also known as the Judicial Department. So for this session, let's go ahead and talk about your judiciary. So just like the previous and the other branches of the government, judicial department would actually exercise what we call as the judicial power. And we define the judicial power as the power to apply the laws to contest or disputes concerning legally recognized rights and duties between the state and private persons or between the individual litigants in cases properly brought about before judicial tribunals having a power to interpret the law. So class, if we're talking about the judicial power, this is the power of your courts. This is the power of your Supreme Court and even the lower courts in which they will be handling the cases in which meron tayong pinag-uusapan dito ng karapatan at yung mga responsibilidad ng bawat tao and even yung gobyerno. So meron lamang kakayahan na magpatupad or mag-interpret ng batas, Say for example, sino ba yung guilty, sino ba yung hindi guilty, sino ba yung may sala, sino ba yung walang sala. So definitely that would be your judicial department because they are applying the laws in order for us to determine sino nga ba yung dapat manalo on a certain case. Okay? So that would be your judicial power. So if you will be asking where is judicial power vested, according to your section 1, judicial power shall be vested in one Supreme Court. And your Supreme Court class is actually composed of 14 justices and also one Chief Justice. And it is not only being vested in the Supreme Court but also with the lower courts na parte ng Supreme Court. So class, to give an insight, Supreme Court is the highest court of the land. Ibig sabihin sila yung merong final say kung sakaling magkaroon ng mga tanong or merong mga merong mga disputes na kina-involvean yung gobyerno or yung iba't ibang tao. Okay? So again, that would be your Supreme Court and the lower courts. Now, you actually keep on hearing the word or the words due process, So paulit-ulit natin yan, most especially yung time na nagkaroon ng nung tinatawag nating extrajudicial killing issues. Okay? But ano nga ba yung due process? If we will be tagalizing due process, okay, ito sasabihin niya ay ito daw yung nararapat na proseso. So what is a due process? Due process class can be divided into two, the procedural due process and the substantive due process. If we're talking about the procedural due process, from the word itself, it will pertain to the procedure. So under the procedural due process, there must be a notice and opportunity to be heard. So ang notice class, commonly ito yung binibigyan ng subpoena or summon na notifying the person kung siya ba ay halimbawa pinapatawag dahil siya ay kinakasuhan, or say for example siya nagsampa ng kaso in order for them to be notified kung kailan ba yung hearing. And hindi yun sapat na mabigyan lang sila ng notice. There should be an opportunity to be heard. Both sides. Hindi pwedeng yung nagsampa lang ng kaso ang papakinggan, hindi pwedeng yung sinasampa ng kaso yung papakinggan lamang. Kailangan pareho sila in order for us to have a procedural due process. Whereas, if we're talking about the substantive due process, this would be a judgment based on the evidence presented by the parties and on the applicable law. So if, say for example, may pinag-uusapan tayo tungkol sa isang issue, kailangan kung ano na yung present ng bawat partido, definitely that would be the ones na kailangan masunod or pagbasihan ng desisyon. Kasi merong mga ilang pagkakataon na merong pagmawalabis sa sa discretion ng isang hukom or ng isang judge, But in order for us to have a substantive due process, kailangan daw class na ang judgment ng isang hukom ay nababatay sa ebidensya na pinresent na nagkakaroon ng hearing. Okay? Take note that kailangan meron yung dalawa in order for us to say that there is a due process. Okay? Otherwise, kung isa lang yung meron, definitely hindi pa rin siya matatawag na due process. Now, just like what I'm referring earlier, there are circumstances wherein there is a grave abuse of discretion. That grave abuse of discretion would actually come from three different situations. First, if there is such capricious and whimsical exercise of judgment as is equivalent to lack of jurisdiction. Say for example, ang isang judge ay bigay ng kanyang hatol out of nowhere, mga tipong hindi niya pinagbasehan yung ebidensya na pinresent or gawa-gawa niya lang. Definitely class, this could actually be tantamount to lack of jurisdiction or hindi na daw siya dapat mag-handle ng kaso kung sakaling ganun mangyari. Second, if the decision or the judgment or the act is done contrary to the Constitution, the law, or jurisprudence. So say for example, humatol yung isang judge na kung saan hindi ito yung sinasabi ng batas. So say for example, ang sinasabi ng batas, bawal halimbawa mga liwa ang mag-asawa, no? At naghukom yung judge na pwedeng mga liwa yung mag-asawa, definitely that act can be considered as a grave abuse of discretion. Third, when act is executed whimsically, capriciously, or arbitrarily out of malice, ill will, or personal bias. So commonly ito class, no, ito yung laging itinatanong kung bias ba yung judge or not, no? But if there would be an instance wherein it is done whimsically, capriciously, out of malice, ill will, or personal bias, definitely there would be a grave abuse of discretion. Okay? All right. So now you may ask, no, what are the powers of the Supreme Court? No? So definitely each of the department of your government or each of the branches of the government, definitely they have their own distinct power. So let's go ahead and have a look on the powers of the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court class can hear and decide cases affecting ambassadors, other public ministers and consuls, and over petitions for certiorari, prohibition, mandamus, quo warranto, and habeas corpus. So class, those enumerated, they are actually kind of cases. But to simplify the terms, definitely, ang pinupunto lang dyan, merong kapangyarihan ang Supreme Court para dinggin ang mga kaso na kung saan pinag-usapan natin yung mga foreign service official kagaya ng mga ambassador and public minister. Okay? Second, the Supreme Court can review final judgment and orders of lower court. So say for example, nakita nila na mali yung judgment halimbawa ng regional trial court or ng municipal trial court, definitely pwede nilang i-review ito at pwede nilang i-revert. So say for example naman, kung gusto nilang patunayan na tama yung naging desisyon ng judge, they can still uphold kung ano yung naging desisyon ng lower court. Alright? Third, they also have the power to assign temporary judges of lower courts to other stations as public interest may require, which assignment shall not exceed 6 months without the consent of the judge concerned. Order a change of venue or place of trial to avoid the miscarriage of justice, and even promulgate rules concerning the protection and enforcement of constitutional rights, pleading, practice, and procedure in all courts, the admission to the practice of law, the integrated bar, and legal assistance to the underprivileged, and review rules of procedure of special courts and quasi-judicial bodies. So plus, sa madaling salita, itong tatlong ito, ang sinasabi lang, merong kapangyarihan ang Korte Suprema na kontrolin yung mga bagay na merong kinalaman sa pag-a-administer ng justice. So say for example, pwede daw sila magtalaga ng mga judges temporarily sa mga mababang kapulungan or mababang korte kung sakaling magkaroon ng public interest. Okay? So pero meron daw limitation diyan, kailangan daw may consent ng judge kung sakaling mag-exceed sa 6 months. Pwede rin daw mag-iba ng venue, magpatupad ng iba ng venue yung Supreme Court. Kasi class, to give you an insight, in a simple explanation, meron kasi mga pagkakataon na pag sinampahan ka ng isang kaso, doon lang sa lugar na yun, pwedeng dinggin yung kaso mo. But to give you again an insight, the Supreme Court can still have the power to order a change of venue kung sakaling magkaroon ng mga mga pagkakataon na kino-question kung tama pa ba yung lugar na yun or hindi. And lastly, class, lahat ng merong kinalaman sa sa korte and even yung mga papasok sa pag-abuga siya, Korte Suprema ang merong karapatan na magsabi kung ano nga ba yung rules concerning that. Okay? Just like the executive department class, Supreme Court also has the power to appoint all officials and employees of the judiciary. But take note, it must be in accordance with the civil service law. Kasi ito yung laging sinusundan lang lahat ng mga empleyado sa gobyerno. So that is actually the civil service law. And lastly, they can exercise administrative supervision over all courts and the personnel thereof. Alright? So let's go ahead and continue. So ano yung karaniwan na ginagawa ng Korte Suprema? They are actually having the judicial review. So the power of judicial review pertains to the mandate of the courts to decide on the validity of executive and legislative acts in the light of their conformity with the Constitution. So just like what I mentioned, class, the primary obligation kung bakit meron tayong tatlo or the primary reason bakit meron tayong tatlong branch of government is to check kung tama pa ba yung ginagawa ng isang government branch or not. And judicial review will tell you kung tama pa ba yung ginagawang executive order halimbawa ng Pangulo or ng legislative legislative acts such as halimbawa mga republic acts, no? Kung tama pa ba or nagko-confirm pa ba sa constitution? Kasi may mga ilang pagkakataon na gumagawa ng rules yung executive and even the legislative na kung saan ito ay against the constitution or tinatawag nating unconstitutional. So sino yung magde-declare nun? Definitely that would be your Supreme Court. So there are requisites of judicial review. First would be the actual case. So it involves a conflict of legal rights and assertion of opposite legal claims requiring adjudication. So kailangan daw merong actual case, meron daw conflict ng legal rights, may nagtatalo, no, na mga partido. So definitely that's actual case. There must be a proper party. So proper party, it's the constitutional question, must be raised by the proper party or one who has a legal standing. So class, if we're talking about legal standing, kailangan daw yung tao apektado nung kaso na na pinag-uusapan. Kasi may mga ilang pagkakataon na ibang tao nagsasampa ng kaso na wala naman talagang kinalaman. So that is proper party. All right? And lastly, there must be an earliest opportunity. So the constitutional question must be raised at the earliest possible opportunity, such that if it is not raised in the pleadings, it cannot be considered at the trial. So kailangan daw, mayroong mga certain circumstances na kung saan nagtatalaga ng kung kailan pwede ka magsampa ng kaso or hanggang kailan lang. So kapag lumagpas ka doon, definitely that cannot be considered at the trial. So those are the three requisites of a judicial review. So you might also ask, what are the qualifications of the members of the judiciary? So Section 7 of your Article 8 will tell you that no person shall be appointed member of the Supreme Court or any lower collegiate court unless first he is a natural-born citizen of the Philippines. Also, class, that member of the Supreme Court must be at least 40 years of age and must have been for 15 years or more, again, plus 15 years or more, a judge of a lower court or engaged in the practice of law in the Philippines. The Congress shall prescribe the qualifications of judges of lower courts, but no person may be appointed judge thereof unless he is a citizen of the Philippines and a member of the Philippine Bar. Okay, and also a member of the judiciary must be a person of proven competence, integrity, probity, and independence. So as you can see there, kailangan daw competent, in short, yung ating yung ating magiging Chief Justice or even the Justice of our Supreme Court. So those are the qualifications. And also, class, to sum these things up, ang ina-expect from a member of a Supreme Court and even the lower courts, okay, there should be a political neutrality and fairness. So what is political neutrality and fairness? It is important for the judicial appointees to show that notwithstanding the perceptions, they can resist political pressures and be neutral and impartial. So class, of the three branches of the government, judiciary is actually the one that is considered to be apolitical. Pag sinabi natin apolitical, hindi dapat ito nababahiran ng politika. Unlike yung executive at saka legislative, karaniwan niyang na number game. Ibig sabihin, meron silang kino-consider, say for example, yung kanilang partido, yung kanilang alliance sa Pangulo or sa mas mataas na opisyales. So, yun yung nangyayari karaniwan sa executive and legislative kung nagpapatupad sila ng batas. But if we're talking about your judiciary, kailangan daw neutral sila. Wala silang iba pagbabatayan kundi yung batas at yung constitution na meron tayo. Otherwise, they can be they can be described as someone na hindi fair, At maaari sila ma-question later on. So that would be your political neutrality and fairness. So class, that would be your Article 8 or the Judicial Department. I hope that you learned something, and I'm looking forward to see you on our succeeding sessions. Thank you, everyone.